Hello and welcome. We're going to be talking about kerning in this video. Kerning is a typography term, and this has to deal with the amount of space between individual characters. Now, to understand the need for this, we need to go back a little bit and talk about typefaces in general. Now, if you're not a typeface designer, you might not know that when you create the actual piece of type, you need to factor in space around each character. And how you build out that space is going to really affect how closely it sits with other characters in various words. Now, as you do this, you can't really account for every single possible combination of letters next to other letters. So what ends up happening is that for certain words and for certain typefaces and certain situations, you're going to see some discrepancies in the amount of space between one character versus the next in a word, and it kind of makes it a little bit clunky to read it. It changes the cadence of the word, and it looks a little visually imbalanced. So kerning is the act of fixing that. So if you have a word with some extra gaps in it or things that don't really look quite right, you'll use kerning to make it a lot more visually balanced. This is one of those kind of very pedantic designery things, though. If you are looking into getting into a design career, making sure that your headlines and any kind of logo type or anything that's really important, take the time to kern it. Make sure you fix those oddities in the letters so that it looks really nice and visually balanced. If you don't do that, it will get picked on in your portfolio. People will notice and will criticize you for it. So make sure to account for that in any kind of portfolio work, or if you're doing any branding, make sure to do that with the logo to make sure it looks nice and professional. For paragraphs and things, you don't really need to kern it. No one has that kind of time. But for any kind of headlines, especially with print, you're going to want to do that. As of today in 2020, there is no kerning that you can really do on web, which drives designers totally bonkers that they can't do it. So you're just gonna kind of have to deal with it if you have some weird gaps in your characters. Maybe they'll develop something with a new version of CSS or something or other that could account for kerning, but there's nothing like that today. There is a counterpart to kerning, which some of you may know about, which is called tracking. And tracking is not the space between individual characters. It's the space between all of the characters. It's kind of how close or how far away the characters are from one another in general. One other thing about kerning is that there are some trends that tend to happen. In the 90s, it was really popular to have what's called kissing kerning. And that's where you have the characters like bumped up right next to one another where they kind of kiss at various points. That's not really very popular today, but it is something to note that kerning isn't an objective thing of like, that's perfectly kerned. It is subjective. So it is important to practice and try and get used to like what is kerned well. And that's going to help you out with your own work and making sure it looks nice and professional. If I referenced any other topics or words or concepts or anything like that in this video, I'm going to make sure to link to it in the video description or in the corresponding article. Hope you have a great day, and I'll see you later.